There are a lot of things that superheroes do. When you think about it, they battle strangely dressed villains. They usually destroy whole cities in the process of that, tearing down buildings or smashing cars or whatever it is. There's a lot of things that superheroes do, but one thing is for sure that all of them do is that they help people, right? When you think about it, when you think about any hero, what they're ultimately trying to do is help people. Last week we started this series called Origin Story, and we looked at kind of the idea of Captain Marvel and her origin story, how her whole story started, and we said that it is important for all of us to recognize and to understand where we come from, our origin story, and this idea, this understanding that we're all made in God's image. And when we truly believe that, when we understand that the Holy Spirit is inside of each and every one of us, everyone who's a follower of Christ, we have the Holy Spirit, it changes the way that we live. That is our origin story. As we're going to dive into tonight, what we're going to look at is this idea of help. How heroes help people who are in need. Whether it's one single person or whether it's an entire city from a villain, heroes seek out and to help others. But all of that comes from an internal motive that other people are important. The very first movie in the MCU lineup is Captain America. Raise your hand if you've seen Captain America, okay? I'm hoping, it's the majority of you, but it's okay if you haven't. It's not a big deal. Here's a picture of Captain America, right? So we know kind of who this guy is. His story is so fascinating because it has an important origin story as well, how Captain America started. So you see, before he was ever this, before he was Captain America, he was Captain Steve Rogers, right? And we know what that guy looks like. Looks like this, okay? So a little bit different, right? A skinny, goofy guy, but all he wanted to do was to serve and to help people during World War II. And we get this glimpse of who he was ever before he became this superhero. And so in the process of them trying to find the right person to become Captain America, they're undergoing this secret project to maximize somebody's DNA and to turn him into this superhuman warrior type guy, right? And they're looking for the best of the best, right? And the military is looking for the best of the best, somebody with the best wit, strength, following orders, all these type of things. They're trying to find the best candidate, but all that they're doing is looking on the outside, finding someone who fits what their description is. But the scientist, the guy who's behind the whole project, he's looking for something a little bit differently. He's looking for character. So we're going to watch this scene of when people truly realized that Steve Rogers was the right person to become Captain America. Check this out.
Look at that. He's making me cry.
I am looking for qualities beyond the physical.
Do you know how long it took to set up this project? All the grubbling I had to do in front of Senator What's-His-Name's committees?
Yes, I know. I am well aware of your efforts.
Then throw me a bone. Hodge passed every test we gave him. He's big, he's fast, he obeys orders, he's a soldier.
He's a bully.
You don't win wars with niceness, Doctor. You win wars with guts. Grenade! Move, move, move! Get away! Get back!
Dummy grenade. All clear. Back in formation.
Is this a test?
He's still skinny.
See, a real hero is willing to help people. They're willing to do what needs to be done for the betterment of others. But there's some good news for all of us. You don't need a cape. You don't need some special shield or any type of superpower to be that. You can do that just in who you are today by caring about other people. You can do that in your everyday life. You don't have to save the entire world, but you can make a difference in one other person's life, a dramatic difference. And that's really what I want to talk to you about tonight. I want to remind you guys that every week we put all of our stuff, all of our notes and verses in YouVersion. And so if you have your phone with you, you can always open up the Bible app and go to the event section and find MPCC High School, and right there you've got all the points and all the text and everything like that. So that way, worst case scenario, you get in the car and your mom says, hey, what'd you learn tonight? You can be like, actually, I could tell you everything, right? And so you can find all that and follow along with us there. I want to talk to you about the story, and you guys know this story, so just follow along with me. You know this story, but I want to talk to you about when Jesus was nearing the end of his life, he had a moment where he did the unthinkable, where he did something that no one expected it, and when he actually started doing this, everyone was taking a step back and says, no, this is not going to happen. You see, in John chapter 13, he was having a meal with his disciples, and he decided to get up and do something special. He took off his outer garment, which would have been his robing and any clothes that he would carry around to keep the sun off of him. And he took that off, and he took a towel, and he wrapped it around his waist. And he went around, and he started to wash his disciples' feet. You guys know that story. The dirty, calloused, undesirable feet of the disciples, of the guys who walked the cities in sandals or possibly even barefoot. I mean, this was something that was special because Jesus wasn't a servant. He called himself a servant, but Jesus was the honored teacher, a rabbi, their respected leader, a mentor. This is not something of any of those type of people, a caliber of any of those type of people that this person would do. This is the role of a servant, of someone of the lowest of lows would wash people's feet, not their respected rabbi, not the person they've seen heal people and do miracles. But Jesus in this moment takes on the role of the servant and washes their feet. This would be the equivalent of you finding yourself in a situation where maybe your superintendent at your school comes up to you and says, hey, I'd like to help you out. Can I come to your house and do your laundry for you? You say, no, right? Like, no, you're the superintendent. Why would you do that for me? In fact, that's exactly what Peter said. Peter looked at Jesus and says, Jesus, you're not. You will never wash my feet. And in that moment, Jesus teaches his disciples something very, very important. Here's what happens next. John chapter 13, starting in verse 12, it's on the screen, it says this. When he had finished washing their feet, he put on his clothes and he returned to his place. Do you understand what I've done for you? He asked them. You call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for that's what I am. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you should also wash one another's feet. I've set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. Very truly, I tell you, no servant is greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. Now that you know these things, you will be blessed if you do them. Jesus washed their feet. He was caring for them. He was showing them love. He was serving them. But even more important than that, he was teaching them something very important. Before he ever got to his greatest act of service, the cross, he was teaching them how to love and to care and to treat the people in front of them. He cared for them in that moment in a way that, understand this, he didn't have to. Jesus didn't have to. In fact, if this story was left out of the Gospels, you wouldn't know any better. But this is a moment that Jesus did something he didn't have to teach them what it means and what it looks like to love the people in front of you, to care for the people in front of you, regardless of the task and regardless of what you think you're worth. Take on the role of a servant. That same night, Jesus told his disciples this in verse 34. He says, "A new command I give you. Love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. By this, by the love, everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another." Jesus modeled for them the type of love and care and kindness that they should have for the people around them. And if that's not a challenge for me, for every single one of you, to love others the way that Jesus has shown us how to love. Understand this. He is not talking about the cross. He hasn't got there yet. He's talking about his moment of service, what he has done for them in this moment, this night. The men that were in front of him, he cared for them. He loved them. He showed them kindness. He treated them as better than himself. And Jesus' response was, like, guys, do you understand what I've done for you? This is what I want you to do. Do as I have done. Wash each other's feet. Love other people. Because when you do this, everyone will know that you are my disciples. people will know that you are Christians by the way that you love other people. And so loving others is the mark of a Christian. We have to understand this. If you ever want people to look at you differently, it's not going to be how much you put in the offering plate. It's not going to be how much you go to church. It's not going to be any of those things. It's going to be how you treat people. Not just your friends, not just the people that you're cool with, not any of that, but all people and the people right in front of you. This is where we have to get to, because this is what it looks like to be a hero, to care for people right in front of you. It's the evidence of a changed heart. And if that's true, then all of us have to learn what this looks like. For Captain America, it was simple. He didn't think twice about this, right? When we watched that clip, he didn't think twice about it. He just dove on that grenade, which, let's be real, it's a silly thing to do, okay? You dove on a grenade, you know what's going to happen when that grenade goes off, but he didn't think twice about it. Because to him, long before he got the suit and the shield, this is who he was. That other people were more important than him. That serving others, that helping others was more important than the things that mattered to him or even his life. And this is what it comes down to for us. But I want to be practical tonight. I want to talk to you about some ways that we can actually do this. And what I mean by this is ways that we can actually help and serve the people in front of us, to care and to love the people in front of us. So how do we do this? I've got 3 ideas for you to help you to do this a little bit better, to do a better job at caring for the people in front of you. And they're all different, but they're all important. The first one is this, is to be aware of others. And I think this is the first step. How many times in your life do you find yourself in places where you are around people, but you don't notice them? Just think about that for a second. How many places in your world do you find yourself in situations like this? It might be at Walmart, or at your school, or maybe even a restaurant. You find yourself where you are around people, but you've avoided eye contact, or you didn't notice people because you stayed in your lane, you minded your own business. This is true for all of us, especially if you're an introvert, right? If you're an introvert, you're like, I want to do my own thing, right? Maybe if you're an extrovert, you're like, noticing everybody. But regardless, we do find ourselves in places where we just aren't aware of the people around us. Imagine if you were in a group of people and someone was having a difficult time, like visibly you could see that. Someone was distressed or felt like they were sitting apart from the group or not engaged. Do you find yourself aware of those things? Think about that for a second. When was the last time you've been in a place where you're around people and you noticed someone who wasn't having a good time or who wasn't connected, who wasn't engaged? Because it happens all the time. Maybe that's been you. But it happens in every place that we go. The question is, are we aware of this? Are we seeing people? Are we being aware of people's feelings? Everywhere we go, this happens. And the first step to care for the people in front of us is to be aware of others. I have told this story before. I can't remember how long it's been, so it's probably a new one, nor do you remember all my stories. But I can vividly remember the very first time I walked into, when I grew up, the church that I went to, we had like a middle school room and a high school room. And they met at the same time, but they were totally different rooms. And the high school room was like at the end of the hallway, right? So you know what that means? You never knew what the high school room looked like unless you intentionally walked down there. And nobody walked down there, right? Nobody wanted to go down to the high school room until you were an 8th grader moving into high school. And I remember walking to that place, terrified, scared, I don't know, I was just nervous. And I walked in there, and I was just in this moment where I was like, I don't know who to talk to, or where to sit, where do the freshmen sit, or whatever it was. And a senior, his name was CJ, came up to me, showed me where the donuts were. I should have been able to find those, but he showed me where the donuts were, and said, hey, you could come sit with me. Why? Why would he do that? Why would a senior care about a freshman? Other than he was aware that I was in a place where I felt uncomfortable, and he didn't want that for me. He cared for me. And here I am. Guys, listen, this was 20 years ago. And I remember this because it meant something to me. It showed me that it's okay to look outside of yourself, to be aware of other people, and then to actually do something about it. I want to challenge you to think about what that looks like in your life. How can you become more aware of people around you so you can help them? His second idea is this, is that we got to listen to others. If we want to care for people, we have to actively listen to what they say. Anybody bad at this? Anybody find themselves in situations where you meet somebody new and you learn, and they tell you their name and you immediately forget it? Like, raise your hand, guys. I'm not alone with that. Like, that happens to us, right? And the reason for that is because we don't listen well, right? We may have asked a question, but we don't always listen. We're more thinking about what we're going to say next. We need to move to the place where we start asking better questions and start listening better. To talk less and to listen more. Sometimes that looks like this. Instead of asking people that you're around, even if it's a friend or an acquaintance, instead of saying, "How are you?" Because that's not a question, right? That's a common greeting. How are you? Good. All right, me too. Good. And you move on. No one expects you to answer that question other than good or fine. But maybe we start asking pointed questions. And I've tried to do better at this in my life. It's hard. But asking questions specifically, how's your parents? How's your brother and sister? How's basketball going? How's tennis going? You ask pointed questions instead of just the common like, "Hey, how are you?" and hoping that maybe it goes somewhere. And listening to people's responses. If you want to care for people, you've got to listen to them and hear about their life. I remember this story from my very first job as an adult, right? And I was sitting in my office, and I worked with this lady named Robin, and she came into my office, and she asked me some questions like how the job was going, was I feeling comfortable, all this type of stuff. And I responded to her, and I said, "Hey, how's your ministry going?" This is my first job at a church. And she responded to me, but then she said something to me. She goes, "I'm glad that you asked me that, because most people, don't reciprocate that type of behavior. Where if you ask something about them, that they would ask something about you." And that's something that we have to learn how to do, is that we have to be invested and care about other people's lives. And I'm not just talking about the person that you're sitting next to. I'm talking about people that are in your life. You got to start listening to them. Here's the last idea. And this one's a little bit complicated, but we've got to get there as a community, is that we have to have sensitivity to others. Sensitivity. You have to be sensitive to the experiences and the perspectives of other people in your life. This is hard in our world, right? Let's be real. Many people think their opinion is right, and it's the only right, and if you don't agree with me, then maybe I'll listen to you, but in the end, you're dumb, right? And, I'm right. We've gotten to the place in our world where it's hard to listen to people who have difference of opinions. And that just can't be the case. When you really want to care for other people, like you really want to care for them, you need to realize that maybe, everybody listen to me for a minute, maybe someone's life and their experiences and how they were raised and how their parents treat them or what life has dealt them, maybe their life experience has shaped the way that they view the world differently than yours. It's possible. Well, that is true, okay? But we often don't think this. We think that everyone should think the way that we think, and because we believe something, then that must be the truth. And while there are certainly areas in life where there is truth and that we shouldn't give way on those things, there are also areas in life where people's experiences and their perspectives are valid too. And so we have to show sensitivity to others. If you find yourself talking to somebody about politics, sports, family, even faith, be sensitive to the words that you use. I remember when I was in high school, I was taught in one of the ways that you should not write, and this has stuck with me to this day, is that you shouldn't use globalization. You guys know what globalization is? It's using these words like everybody or all people or those type of things. Because when you globalize a subject and you say, well, everybody should do this, or that's often not the case. There are very few things in this world that apply to everyone. And so having the type of words and understandings that you choose your words carefully is a way to have sensitivity to others, to recognize their perspective may be different from yours. This is a great topic, honestly, for you to talk about in your small groups because you can go into a lot of different areas in this. But I just want you to have the understanding is if you want to care for the person in front of you, be sensitive to their perspective and their worldview. I do this a lot, and I don't know if you guys do this, but I'll often find myself on social media, whether it's on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter, and I know you guys use some other things that maybe I'm not on, but with those things where I'll type something out, whether it's a post or a tweet or something like that, and I'll go, how are people going to view that? Or how is that person going to see the sentence that I wrote there, or that picture, or whatever it is? And sometimes I find myself deleting or like redrafting and going, man, I want to represent this well to all people. I'm sure I don't do very well at this all the time, but there's a lot of times, or there's things that I intentionally don't post or don't contribute to because I'm respectful of the perspective of all different types of people. We've got to get to this place. Jesus was a hero not just because he went to the cross, but because he cared for people. He loved people. Captain America was the same way. He was a hero before he got his powers, before he got his shield, because internally he cared about other people and wanted to do things for the betterment of them. We want to begin to change the world. It's how you treat people. It's how you care for people. And honestly, guys, here's the deal. This starts internally, and you won't get very far if this doesn't come from your heart. But you gotta genuinely care about other people before you make that a part of your actions. Heroes care for the people in front of them. That's the bottom line. That's what I want you to understand. This is our takeaway, is that if you want to be this type of person, you want to be who God has called you to be, in the same way that Jesus did with his disciples and the people that he encountered on his journey, you care for the person in front of you. Not just your friends, not just your family, the person in front of you, whoever you interact with in your life. If we all did this, smiling to the person across the street or at Walmart or asking people how they're doing, going beyond the typical questions, looking for ways to unite us instead of divide us, then we each individually, we make this world better. We make this room better. Your families become better. Your schools, this community collectively can become better if we start doing these things. Let's start loving people the way that Jesus loved people. Let's care about people the way that Jesus cared about people.